This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Lunide Louis. She was born in Haiti, a third world country. She migrated to New York City at the age of 10. She spent 12 years in Boston, Massachusetts, where she received her bachelor's and master's degree in organizational psychology. Today, Lunide lives in San Diego, California, a move she made back in 2011 to pursue her doctorate degree in organizational psychology and leadership. Lunide is the host of the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. The podcast is the first of its kind, devoting a whole show discussing effective morning routine tips and chatting with entrepreneurs and thought leaders in their appropriate fields on how their healthy morning habits have contributed to their success. Thank you for joining me today. So tell me a little bit about your journey. So obviously I'm an immigrant as well. I came to the United States at 5. So tell me a little bit about how you got here and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. At the age of 10, I was in Haiti, tropical weather, with my mom and my 2 other siblings. And my grandmother, who has been in the States for about 10 years, had been working super hard and making sure that we got our visa and we were able to come to the States. So my mom, who was the first out of 11 kids, let all her kids get their papers first because she was waiting for her kids to get, for us, the kids, to get our papers before coming to the States. And so she didn't leave us behind. And that was very selfless of her. And I thought about that this morning. That I wrote that in my gratitude journal. Like, I'm thankful for her selfless act, because once we all were coming to the United States, we experienced a culture shock together. We were all together, and so it made it a lot easier to transition from tropical weather to freaking blizzard, cold, windy New York City when we landed in 1995. And from then on, it's been a whirlwind of culture shock and learning and growth. And I have to tell you, I am grateful, and it's been a great journey to get here, because education has been a big part of my upbringing, a big part of my background, and that's why today, as a professor, I'm giving back into the education system.
Yeah, I think education is very important, as long as kind of your focus with it, because if you go in different directions. Obviously, in the United States, higher education is more of a business. So if you really know what you want to do, like you wanted to do, and get to it, I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a shift too with education. I've been a professor for over 6 years now, and the shift with education is now it's tailored. You're looking for the core competencies, and there's this knowledge era, right? Where you are only going to pay for what you need to learn. Your masterminds, I'm sure you've heard of those currently, like floating around, getting in a group and actually leveraging of other people's expertise. And it's not a new phenomenon. It really is something that I read in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and when he was doing his interviews with the entrepreneurs and successful people back in those days, they formed up alliances like we are doing so today, because the traditional school system, as you say, is a business. It's a faulty business, and it has to change. And I think that's where the shift is going, with a lot of us realizing what our talents and our gifts are, and saying, you know what, I can help somebody do what I did. It took me 10 years, but if with my expertise, with my help, they can do it in 2 years. That's timeless. You're saving so much time and money there, instead of going to school for 30 grand a year and then coming out with a student debt, which I have, by the way, and it just puts you at a deficit, especially being an immigrant, because you don't have that it's not a hand-me-down, but you don't have that wealth, that generational wealth, right? Because you're coming in here, you're first generation, and you're working, you're first generation yourself, and you're working super hard to make ends meet, to make it work, and you don't have mommy and daddy who's going to give you $20,000 to put down on a down payment. You got to come up with that by yourself. But if you go to school, you come out with a debt of $60,000, $70,000. You already at, there's no surplus here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that debt leads to a lot of, obviously, anxiety, depression, and even suicide. One of my brother's friends from his childhood, he ended up messing up in law school, flunking out, but he had that debt to pay. So he had, six-figure debt. He didn't know what to do, and he committed suicide. So like that's very real. So like you said, I think, the whole education system as a whole needs to be reevaluated and, position more in terms of putting out people that are well educated in the fields they want to do, and not necessarily, make as much as they can while they're in school off of them.
I 100% agree, because as your friend is like an example of that, it really is disheartening to see, because you're indebted, and that creates anxiety, as you said, but also insecurity. There's this lack, right? And then we have, and it's ingrained in our head, this lack towards money. Like we can't have it, it doesn't belong to us, and we don't know how to go get it. That lack of education, because you already started, you're buried before you even start making money. And so I totally agree with you. And there's this need of a shift to learn from the people who have succeeded, because success leaves clues. Success leaves a trail. So pick your tribe and pick who you want to learn from, and actually pursue that, because the old way of doing things is not working for our new era.
I agree. So in terms of obviously where you've gotten and the education level you were at, were you always passionate about psychology, or when you came to the United States, how did you kind of get assimilated and get kind of find your passion?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. And I was talking to my fiance about this last night. When I grew up in Brooklyn. I came from Haiti up into Brooklyn and lived in Brooklyn, did middle school because I was 10 years old. I did middle school in Brooklyn, and I got into this high school called Medgar Evers, and it was a test school. And Medgar Evers had a preceding a college that you can go to right after you graduate high school. So I had this all 4 years planned out for me, what I'm going to do. And Medgar Evers was planned around the police force. I was going to be a police officer. I was going to be NYPD, the badge and everything. That was the plan. This is what I wanted to do. And I was after college and working for a few years, I was going to go into forensic psych. And so that's where psychology started for me. And right after I graduated 8th grade, I was 11 to 13 years old, and I had a crush on the boy that lived downstairs. I don't speak English. I don't know what to do. I'm awkward as hell. If you know any Haitians, we are colorful, colors not matching, and we couldn't wear the Air Forces, the Jordan, and these kids, Americans with the Jordans, the Timberlands, and here I am buying at Payless, because that's what my family could afford. And you're shunned. You're disqualified from being in the in-group and hanging out. So I liked this boy, and I had a journal at the time. I couldn't speak to him, so I wrote in my journal. So I would get on this journal and write what I want to accomplish, and also how I daydream about this guy. And one time my mom came into the room and says, Lou, go out to the store and grab me some milk. And to my default, I left my journal open. And I go to the store. I was like, right now, I go to the store, I come back, and she's reading it. So she's reading this journal, and she could pick out the words kiss and like and all this. And then she says, this is what you want to do with your life? You want to be out here and get pregnant and don't make nothing out of it yourself? You know how immigrant parents are. Mm-hmm. It just goes from, it's not loving. There's no in between. It's like straight life ends because you make one mistake. So, she let it go. She says, you cannot talk to him. You cannot, this will never happen. And we always go to Boston to see my grandmother for the summer. And so that summer I graduated 8th grade, and I'm going off to high school. I got it all planned out. And I realized I'm packed more than everyone else. My mom packed my stuff, but I had more clothing items than everyone else did. So I was like, I paid no attention to it. So we get to Boston, we had a great summer, and 2 days before we come back for school, come back to New York, my mother says to me, "You are not going back with me." Jaw drop. I was like, "What do you mean?" "But you're my mother." She says, I will not have you coming back. And Roman, I was mute. I had anger issues. I was bitter. I had just a hard time adapting to that fact. My own mother just abandoned me and left me with my grandmother. But it turned out an event that actually changed my life for the better. And we don't see it then, but it's easier, as Steve Jobs says, it's easier to connect the dots looking backward. And now that I look backwards, I found a school in 2 days. I was able to go to a school, and education became a bigger part, because that's the only thing I could control, because I felt like I had no control at that point, right? 14 years old, and just feel like I was being ripped from my immediate family that I came to New York with. So I focused on my education and studied psychology even more, and then got into just studying people in the workplace, doing clinical psychology. So the psychology just shifted from forensic psych to being a police officer, to clinical psychology, and now to psychology in the business and studying entrepreneurs and leaders, which leads me to who I am today with a PhD in that field, and having the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs.
No, that's great. So what motivates you to succeed?
In 2019, motivation for me is time freedom. Our biggest asset, our biggest wealth is our time. And in 2019, I want to gain control over that. And by time freedom, Roman, I mean not just getting out of a 9-to-5 where I have the majority of my day to do what I want to do, what I love doing, which is precisely what we're doing here in educating people, in writing content and doing all that, but also time to spend with the ones that I do love. To be able to travel, to be able to immerse myself in other cultures. I'm a world traveler. Visited several countries so far, and making my way through the States. And I need the time and the financial means to do it. And so my motivation right now is to gain control of my biggest asset, my time.
I agree, and I think travel is very important. It leads to a different perspective that you may have had before taking that trip to some places where people obviously live a lot more impoverished, some more wealthy, but you can learn a lot from, every different culture, what they have to offer.
I agree. And it's compassion that you learn along the way, because you realize you here in the States and you have all these opportunities. We're both from, I'm from third world country. We're both immigrants, and we know like people are struggling just to get food on their table at night. They don't have money. They don't have sometimes clean water, electricity. I didn't have electricity growing up, or running toilet, for crying out loud. But when I go visit, especially other third world countries, and I realize how much we have here in the States, yet we're not happy. Yet happiness eludes us. Yet satisfaction eludes us. Contentment with life eludes us. And then it makes you wonder, what is the key to true happiness? What is the key to true success? And so those trips always give me this perspective of like, happiness is not about materialistic things you do have. It's about connecting with other people. It's about serving other people. It's about giving back to other people, as you do, being a foster parent, right? You find joy in that, where no money can quantify what's that like for you. And when I go to these countries and people are just, they're simple. The simplistic way of living, it really is. I'm in awe of that. And when we come to our environment, it's hustle and bustle. It's running here, it's running there. We don't even have time to put a morning routine together. We don't have time to meditate. We don't have time to calm down our mind and listening to our spirit and our soul for guidance throughout the day,
Yeah, I agree. And I think when I, go overseas, or even when I went to Hawaii for the first time to visit my wife's family for a family reunion, it puts like things that what you should be grateful for in perspective, how much you really have in the United States and the opportunities you have. But even in Hawaii, that's the 50th sort of state. A lifestyle is a lot different because it's in, the South Pacific. Everybody is like laid back, super nice, super helpful, and it's just like a really good change of pace.
Their priorities are different.
Yep.
And because of that, their quality of life is different. I mean, people are living longer out there. We, like in Haiti, we didn't have obesity, diabetes, and hypertension and all that stuff because we ate off the ground. We grew it in our backyard. We grew the potatoes. We grew the rice. We ate off the land, and we didn't have to worry about processed food too. And so those people, the life expectancy is higher. It's higher for them because they're natural. They're happy. They're smiling, and they're bonding with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a little bit of that on the continental U.S.
Yeah.
So what's one weakness that you may have had in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
I'm very siloed. I'm a loner per se. Like I spend a lot of time alone. I'm very comfortable being by myself, if I should say. And that has been a weakness in the past because I don't socialize as much. And when I do get an opportunity to socialize, I panic and I don't know what to say. Even till today, and I'll be in meetings and I'm like the quiet one in meetings. I'm like, why don't I say anything? Why don't I speak up? I have great ideas, but I shy away from being flamboyant. I shy away from being loud. And that has started to work in my favor because now that as a thinker, you can imagine I have a lot of ideas running into my head. So I've been able to put those ideas in journals. Even as a young child, I kept writing and able to put those on paper. And now I'm using that to write content. I'm using that to help other people grow and develop. And so that what was once a flaw, me being introverted, being a loner, having no friends, like not having a best friend for a long time and not connecting with people, I had a hard time connecting with people. And today I'm able to use that at my advantage where I do talk and connect with entrepreneurs and people in my life and started to build meaningful relationships. And started accepting myself for who I am and stop trying to change, stop trying to be extroverted, stop trying to be loud, but stop trying to be outgoing when you really are not. When you find people, I'm genuine now. And so people value me being honest and being real.
No, I agree. I think being yourself, and I mean, I a lot of the time prefer to be on my own more so than being in chaotic kind of social situations, but taking that and, not forcing myself, but getting into more networking events, more conferences and stuff like that, and making an attempt to meet people more and more my terms and not forcing it, like you said, really helps me open up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, it's easier on you because it's not forced. It's easier because we're habitual creatures, and it's hard to try to change so drastically and do it fast because you got to give yourself time, your personality time to adjust to the new habit, to the new efforts that you're putting forward, like for going out to networking. And I realized, okay, I'll do 1 a week versus I'll do 3 a week because that will burn me out. And so it's planning, just have you done, Roman. It's strategizing. What's the game plan? You got to plan for everything. Honestly, if you want to be more outgoing and want to network more and want to increase your group with more elite people, you gotta hash out a plan for a month. If it's like, how many events are you going to attend to? Who are you going to have in your circle? Who are you going to reach out to? And for me, I had to do that. I had to say, I'll do 1 meetup a week, or I'll sign up for 2 Facebook groups. And I will talk once a week on the Facebook group because even though I joined the group, I'm still very silent.
Yep. Something for you to hold yourself accountable that you can, attain and hold yourself to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you got to plan and you got to have that reward at the end. Why are you doing this? You got to ensure that the why is bigger than the how, so that you can proceed with it.
I agree. So what's one piece of advice you may have for the audience, personal or professional?
Yeah, my personal advice is to improve the quality of your day and enhance the quality of your life, you have to get a morning routine in place. We are habitual creatures. We set them up anyway. It just happens without our permission. It's like you get up, you hit snooze, you roll over, you growl out of bed, you're unhappy, you get ready, you put on your face, your clothes, and you run out the door. But what about taking care of your mind? What about spending some time with the in meditation? What about reading something stimulating? What about visualizing what your goals are for the day, or visualizing what your goals are? If we were to do that in less than 10 minutes, we can start to shift our mindset to having a better day. And that in return is a domino effect, because that habit will affect other areas of our lives. And that's why I with the Best Morning Routine, I've been collecting data and been talking to tons and tons of entrepreneurs. I've been able to pick out the commonalities, the things that come up more frequently. And I have developed a framework for individuals to follow in under 10 minutes, because as a psychologist, other doctors have mentioned that whatever you do in the first 8 minutes of the day will set the tone for the rest of it. And that's 1%, right, of the day. Whatever you do, that first 10 minutes will ensure you have a better day. And so I have developed a framework called HIT Savers, and it's an acronym for your HIT Savers, where you do these 9 things in the morning in your habit, so that you can create healthy ones, or a healthy routine.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think starting out your day, regardless how you start your day, like you said, if you started out negatively, you get some bad news, or first thing you do is read an email and it's something negative, you end up being affected by it all day, and it kind of destroys the day. But like you said, having a positive routine, or rehashing and redoing some of the negative ones can really go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and we're waking up with the same thoughts we had yesterday. So it's a audio that is on replay and on repeat, and you should hear the things that's on there. They're negative. Like, what are the conversations you're having with yourself? The I ams. I'm not enough. I'm not competent. And these negative things that you have to be diligent and intentional about changing. How you speak to yourself and what you do here, because it will affect you. We have ants. We all have ants. We all have automatic negative thoughts. It's a given. It's going to happen, because it's just how we were socially constructed. Kids hear no over 1,000 times, in a week. And so what do you think you're going to be ingrained? What affirmation is going to be ingrained in your mind? And so it really is requiring some time for yourself in the morning to start making that shift. If you open up your cell phone first thing in the morning and scroll through social media, look at your likes, look at your feedback from the day before, that's a habit. That starts ingrain as a habit, because now you have a cue. You wake up, you want that feel good, so you want to see how many people liked you, and that becomes a routine. The reward you get is that feel good feeling that people acknowledge you, and you just form a habit. You didn't even know it. So throughout the day, sporadically, you'll feel the urge to check how many more likes did I get? Did anybody else comment? And just like that, without your permission, it just formed, and you'll see yourself doing it day in and day out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, social media is a gift and a curse that way. And it's become kind of a real addiction, because like you said, it gives you, pleasure. It spikes your dopamine levels in terms of, seeing the people that liked you or not. But at the end of the day, I've said it on my podcast, other podcasts, it's just a highlight reel. So everyone's going through something regardless of the severity of it, but they're still going through something, but they don't post 24/7 of their life, a live feed of their life. They just highlight, a good vacation or a nice meal or a get together. And it's not a accurate depiction of one's whole life.
Mm-hmm. Well put about social media. I agree 100%. So don't let that be your motivation. Don't let that be the first thing you feed your mind, because it's not real. It's not your reality either. And start creating your own. You be in control of your mind, be in control of your day. That's how it begins.
Yep. And it's addicting. So limit your time if you can.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate you coming on today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to briefly tell them what the Hit Savers app is about. I'm developing an application to go along with the podcast that covers the 9 actionable items that can be done in 9 minutes to improve the quality of your day. And the H in Hit Savers stands for hydration, hydrating first thing in the morning. And I outline the benefits of doing that because it also helps with brain fog in the morning. The I is I am profoundly grateful for, and here is the journal. That's where the journal comes from, like 3 things that you are grateful for. Even if you think it, you can write it down. And then time's up, make your bed, because I have a famous quote that I am going to, I believe it's going viral. When a made up bed is a made up mind. That's my quote, and that helps with being productive first thing in the morning when you do make your bed up. And then the S is for silence, meditation, taking deep breaths, and actually listening to your breath so that you're present. If you're present in the morning, you'll be present throughout the day. In that meeting with your kids, with your wife, wherever you are, you'll be present. And A is for affirmations, those negative automated thoughts, those ants. This is your opportunity to change them. Start reaffirming that I am anointed, I am blessed, I'm gonna have a great day type of thing. And then V is for visioneering, is what I call when you put yourself in alpha state, and I'll break it down later on in my podcast and in the book. In the app as well, is when you get yourself in an alpha state so that you can be relaxed and you can think about a goal that you want, but you bring in a good feeling from another experience that you previously had. And then exercising is in the E. And of course you read. And then the last one, you take a shower, but make it a cold shower, because there are a slew of benefits for taking a 60-second shower at the end of your long hot shower, because it helps with serotonin, it helps with being alert and awakeness and focus. So that's the Hit Savers app in a nutshell. It is coming out in about 30 days. And also to connect with me is simply at my website. It is my name, LunideLouis.com, LUNIDELOUIS.com. There you'll find the podcast episode, you'll find my book, you'll find the app, and of course, just data and information on how to build healthy habits.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by, and thanks again.
Thank you so much, Roman. You have a great day now.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.